You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm pulls you out of sleep. No calendar tells you where to be. You open your eyes and the day simply begins. For roughly 300,000 years, this was the default human experience. Not a vacation, not a luxury, just Tuesday. And yet, if you tried to picture what ancient humans actually did all day, you would probably imagine something exhausting. Endless hunting, desperate foraging, a brutal scramble from dawn to dusk just to survive another night. That picture is almost completely wrong. So, what did your ancestors actually do with their time? The answer is stranger and in many ways more appealing than anything you have been told. Let us start with the work. Because, yes, ancient humans did work. They hunted, they gathered roots, tubers, berries, and seeds. They made tools, cared for children, moved camp when resources demanded it. But here is the number that will rearrange everything you think you know about prehistoric life. Anthropologist Marshall Solins, in his landmark 1966 essay, argued that hunter-gatherers were the original affluent society, not because they had a lot, but because they needed very little and obtained it efficiently. Salins synthesized data from multiple ethnographic studies and found that subsistence work, the actual labor required to eat and survive, consumed roughly 3 to 5 hours per day. 3 to 5 hours. Richard Lee, an anthropologist at the University of Toronto, spent years living with and studying the Kung San people of the Kalahari Desert. His 1979 book documented that the Kung averaged about 2.5 to 3 hours of work per day to meet all their food needs. The rest of the day was open. Open for what? For the things that make us human. Your ancestors rested, not the guilty, I should be doing something kind of rest that you know. Deep, unscheduled rest. They lay in the shade, they watched the landscape, they did nothing in particular, and this was not laziness. It was recovery, it was processing, it was the biological rhythm your nervous system is still built for. They talked an enormous amount. Evolutionary anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying the role of social bonding in human evolution, and his research suggests that language itself evolved primarily for social grooming to maintain the complex webs of relationship that made group survival possible. Ancient humans gossiped. They told stories, they argued, teased, flirted, consoled, and laughed. Conversation was not a break from survival, it was survival. They played. Children played constantly, and adults joined them. Chasing games, wrestling, throwing. Play is not decoration in human development, it is the mechanism through which young humans learn coordination, spatial reasoning, social rules, and emotional regulation. A child who played in a prehistoric band was running cognitive software updates every single day. They made things, not just tools, though tool making was itself a sophisticated art. They carved figurines from bone and ivory. They painted. The caves of Chauvet in southern France, dated to over 36,000 years ago, contain hundreds of detailed animal paintings, horses, rhinoceroses, lions, rendered with a skill and confidence that still stuns modern artists. Whoever painted those images did not dash them off during a 5-minute break from exhausting survival work. They planned, they composed, they returned, they cared about how it looked. They danced and sang. Music and rhythm appear in every human culture ever documented across every continent in every era. Bone flutes have been found at sites over 40,000 years old. Rhythm is so deeply embedded in human neurology that infants respond to it before they can speak. Your ancestors almost certainly sang around fires. The evidence is everywhere. The quiet is only in our assumptions. Now pause and really picture a day. The band wakes with the light. Not all at once, people drift away gradually the way humans do when no alarm overrides their sleep cycle. A few adults head out foraging, typically the ones who feel like it, rotating through the group's collective knowledge of where good food can be found this season. Others stay in camp. Children run and play. An elder repairs a tool or tells a story to whoever will listen. Someone naps. By mid-morning, the foragers return. They have roots, berries, some seeds, maybe a small animal. The food is shared without ceremony because sharing is not generosity in this world, it is the operating system. Polly Weissner, an anthropologist who has spent decades studying the Kung and other groups, documented how food sharing functions as insurance in hunter-gatherer societies. You give today because you will need to receive tomorrow. The group is the bank. The afternoon is largely free. This is not a mistake or an anomaly. It is the design. Your ancestors slept differently too. Jerome Siegel, a neuroscientist at UCLA who studied the sleep patterns of 3 traditional hunter-gatherer groups, published findings in 2015 that contradicted nearly everything modern sleep science assumed. These groups did not sleep 8 continuous hours. They went to bed hours after sunset, woke sometimes in the night, rested in a more fluid rhythm connected to temperature and light. There was no insomnia as a disorder. Sleep was not a problem to be solved. It was a texture of life. Now think about what is missing from this picture. There is no boss. There is no commute. There is no mortgage, no debt, no performance review, no inbox, no notification. There is no gap between who you are and what you do. The hunter-gatherer does not perform a role separate from their identity. They simply live. And here is the counterintuitive twist that anthropologists have wrestled with for decades. The shift to agriculture, which we call civilization, almost certainly made daily life worse for most people who lived through it. Skeletal remains tell the story with brutal clarity. Populations that transitioned from foraging to farming show a consistent signature in their bones: shorter stature, higher rates of dental decay, increased signs of nutritional deficiency, and evidence of far more repetitive physical strain. Farming required grinding labor, often 10 to 14 hours a day, in the field season after season, to produce a less varied and less nutritious diet than foraging provided. The work became harder, the food became worse, the hours became longer. You traded a life of varied activity, deep social connection, and unscheduled time for a life of structured, repetitive toil in service of a surplus that someone else often controlled. This is not nostalgia. You cannot go back, and even if you could, prehistoric life carried real dangers: disease, injury, the occasional famine, predators that treated your ancestors as prey. But the trade-off is worth naming, honestly. Something was lost. And here is what that means for you right now. Your body is still running the ancient software. Your nervous system was shaped over hundreds of thousands of years for a life of varied movement, social bonding, unscheduled rest, and genuine leisure. When you feel restless sitting at a desk, when you feel the pull toward conversation, toward making something with your hands, toward doing nothing productive on a sunny afternoon, that is not a character flaw. That is not laziness. That is your ancestors reaching across 300,000 years to remind you what a day is actually for. You wake up when your body is ready. For almost the entire span of human history, that was not a dream. It was just another morning,